This is your influencer performance report. So it's your deepest level of performance and metrics for the influencer channel. So it goes all the way down to a post level. It is predominantly driven by the information that you put onto the two influencer sheets on your configuration setup. You've got the stat sheets here, which determines your influence platforms, names, categories, if you want to assign them to different countries, following sizes, etc. So all this kind of stats associated on an influencer level sits on that sheet, and then the actual individual posts and costs associated to those posts get pulled from this influencer cost sheet. So if you have specific discount codes associated to those posts, you can input them here as well. That will pull through. There's also where you can track the source of the influencer. So if you're using a external agency and you've got an internal team, you can differentiate the performance between the two by using this, as well as another layer down to specific team member. So like the other reports, we have the metric health view up here. Again, these are customizable in terms of the metrics you're reviewing here, but just an instant look in terms of what I need to be focused on. So I had quite a high rebook rate yesterday or last 7 days. I'm lacking in winners. So maybe two things there I want to sort of go and dig deeper on. We've got the KPI snapshots. We also have filters available, again, down to a post level. So I can look at individual posts. So, an influencer's second, third or fourth post. So this was filtering all of these charts to every influencer's second post, which can be interesting for rebook analysis. Who owns that? So you can dig into team member performance, new versus rebookings, external versus internal, and also analyze your specific winners. So if you just want to pull up the posts and the influencers that have driven those winners over a certain time frame, because you want to re-edit those or reuse those for paid channels, potentially look at doing more sponsored promotion behind those posts. That's one of the easiest ways you can do that. And post winners are visible across the different reports and tables here. This is basically defined as you want it to be. So typically we base it on meeting a certain order and CAC threshold over the first 7 days of that post going live. So of course you can, we customize those thresholds based off of your sort of unique circumstances, how many influencers you're working with, typical volumes. But it's usually based off of time frame, minimum quantity of orders, and the efficiency of those new orders. And then also what's worth noting as well, we have this post total addressable market. So this is the cumulative following size of all the posts that are going live in a given time frame. So it's just a nice way of seeing sort of how volume of audience. So if you've got like two really large influencers going live versus on a specific day versus 20 smaller ones, you can kind of assess the performance of those on a total audience level, sort of apples to apples, using that metric. And then we also have dimensions aggregated. So this is quite useful for looking at sort of, as I mentioned, if you've got a external agency versus an internal team, you can use this table to analyze performance right down to a profit level. So we've got CM3 here. I could just apply my agency fees to this external to get a true picture of what my profitability is versus the internal team. Again, if you're managing an influencer team, you can look at individual team member performance here as well. So that could influence performance reviews. You might want to pick apart your top performing team member in terms of best practice and rolling that out across the rest of the team, bonuses, all of that kind of stuff. You could use this data for. And then below that, we have a performance by post index. Again, really interesting for looking at sort of how influencers perform over time. So that kind of repeat exposure to the audience, is it improving efficiency, or, is that degrading over time? I can easily see that looking at this chart here. Same for following size and category. If I want to optimize my influencer selection process, I'd probably be using this in terms of, okay, which specific categories are driving the most efficient acquisition. So here it looks to be sort of the larger bases have a better efficiency. I might want to look at that on a category level as well. So I've got all of my categories mapped out here. And yeah, you can also do the breakdown in these charts. So that's sort of, owner versus source over time as well. So if I wanted to look at, weekly CAC of or CM3 even, let's look at CAC of internal performance versus external. I could look at that here. That's it. Same for a team member level as well as all of the other dimensions we have here. And that's the influencer dashboard. So really useful for looking at finding specific posts that have performed really well, particular influencers that are driving your performance, and also looking at internal sort of performance of the team / internal versus external. So team versus agency performance as well.